Please welcome to the stage Market President, Silicon Valley at Bank of America, Raquel Gonzalez.
Good afternoon. I'm Raquel Gonzalez, and I'm the president for Silicon Valley for Bank of America. And it is a pleasure to be with all of you today. Buenas tardes. Thank you, Hacer Familia, for continuing your 2023 programming dedicated to the development of Latino executives across corporate America. We are honored to be part of Hacer's executive programs and to be recognized by this organization as the exclusive Latina Champion sponsor. At Bank of America, we're committed to investing in our Hispanic Latino communities, not just by being a great place to work for our employees, but also in supporting our clients and being proactive in our neighborhoods where we live and work. We think of D&I as a business imperative, critical to our teammates, our clients, and our communities. One example of this thinking is our company's Hispanic Latino Executive Council, or as we call it, HLEC, which I'm personally engaged in. It is comprised of nearly 300 US-based senior Hispanic leaders across the company. And our mission is to help influence strategies that grow talent representation and deepen relationships with Hispanic Latino clients. Through the HLEC, we've been able to advocate for tangible change that has increased the ability for us to hire Hispanic professionals, to drive job satisfaction for those who are already part of our team, and to offer improved business solutions for our clients. We are very fortunate to work closely with partners such as Hacer, Unidos US, the US Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and many others to help develop, support, and empower the growing Hispanic Latino community. And I am very excited about today's conversation. But before we continue with our panel, I would like to share more about how our Latino leaders are presentes at Bank of America.
We're focused on being a great place to work.
That values diversity and develops diverse talent.
Champions dialogue.
And fosters respect and service.
We're mirroring the communities we serve.
Delivering on the needs of our clients.
And advancing racial and ethnic equality and economic opportunity.
We're leveling the playing field.
Fueling opportunities.
And celebrating Hispanic and Latino culture and the arts.
Through constructive, long-term partnerships.
Because we're powerful.
We are passionate.
We are proud.
And we're present.
Estamos presentes.
All right, and now I'm going to call my panelists up for our next section of the program. I think they're back there.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes. All right. I am so honored to be leading this panel, moderating this panel, with two exceptional women here. To my left is Lydia Holiat, and she's going to be one of our panelists. She's VP and Portfolio Manager for the Heavenford Trust Company. And then a good friend of mine, Isaura Gaeta. She's VP of Security Research at Intel. So welcome, ladies. It is an honor to be here with you.
Muchas gracias.
All right, we're going to start with a question on leadership. And the question will be for both of you, so whoever wants to answer it first. Can you tell us your personal story? And also add just how did you rise to your current position?
Bueno, so my personal story is that when I was young, it was very, very important in my upbringing to have academics and music, and then if I had more time, sports. So it was a very disciplined approach to making sure that I got no less than a B, and it was always about having a lot of discipline. I played the harp for 18 years and making sure that I practice every day.
Did you bring it with you?
Not today. Oh, maybe for cocktail hour later. But, I think growing up, what that helped me do with playing the harp and such was be able to have discipline and thought about achieving goals and learning music and being able to collaborate and work on a team with the orchestra and such. So it allowed me to earn some money as a very young child and better than a $4 babysitting gig. And I got into finance. So I started out at SCI Investments for almost a decade, and now at the Haverford Trust Company for 12 years, where I'm now vice president and portfolio manager. And I'm also involved with the Philadelphia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, where I've been involved with them for 8+ years, currently elected as their vice chair. In 2 years will be a chairperson.
Excellent. How about you, Isaura?
So I was born in Chicago, but I was second generation to United States, grew up only speaking Spanish. So when I started elementary school, I didn't know English, and subjects like math really just resonated with me because they just made sense, right? It didn't matter that I didn't speak English. So I gravitated toward those disciplines, and then later science. And I always thought I'll go into a career with math and science. I was a very curious child. And it wasn't until I was like in middle school where I was starting to hear, women don't go into those fields. And I was like, I don't understand why. Applying to colleges, my high school counselor discouraged me from applying into engineering. And I told him, I'm going to go to Stanford University. And he said, girls like you don't get into Stanford. So there's a lot of barriers. Julio's conversation earlier about overcoming barriers really resonated with me because a lot of examples of people that didn't believe in me that, tried to prevent me from going after my passions. So I did go into engineering, studied electrical engineering at Stanford University, and went into engineering, and we could talk more about what it's like being a woman in engineering, but loved learning, loved trying things, trial and error, building things. I've received a lot of patents, written a lot of papers, and eventually, organizing the work of others. I moved up the management ranks to the point now where I'm general manager of product security for all the products that Intel makes globally. Woo!
All right, so don't ever tell Isaura no, that she can't do something, right?
Yeah, that'll
don't ever tell her no. All right, ladies, how do you learn to or choose to design your executive presence as your career progressed in your fields? And maybe both of your fields at times are more male-dominated, or maybe earlier in your career they were. So how did you design your executive presence? How did you choose it and then designed it?
Yeah, being in the finance industry, it's very male-dominated. I would tell you still to this day, I'm in the room with more men than I am women. And, if I were to kind of think back and say, what's the one piece of advice I would give myself? It's know thyself. Really, it's about having self-awareness and being able to have the confidence to say that, yeah, I am a member of this team. I have a point of view, and to really be able to say, you know, who am I? Who is Lydia? And to say that I matter and that I have a voice. And to be able to do those things, sometimes you need to reach out, use an executive coach, or even build yourself a board of directors, if you will, just a cohort of people who can really, you know, look at you in the eye and say, you know, Lydia, you should, you know, work on this, or maybe you come off too strongly when you do this, and really just have an evolution towards how do you play in an area that is a little bit more male-dominated. One other thing that I've considered too is that early on in my career, I was a very private person, and it was difficult for me to make connections with others. And I would just say male or female, but in the instance of being able to build rapport and build community, when you're in those situations, find personal ways to connect with people, whether it's through something as simple as a specific cuisine that you like, or children, or family, or travel. It just really starts the conversation to be able to get engaged together in the community.
Great, I love that.
So very similar to Lydia's point, I think one of the strengths that perhaps as female leaders is connecting with people, and I've always tried to create an environment where other people want to work. So how do you create a group where people want to join, they enjoy the work that they're doing, and they can be themselves? So that's one of the things I've always tried to create about how I am perceived as a leader. The second, in a technical field, is that technical credibility, staying current with what's happening in technology, so that when you're called, you know, an opportunity comes up, that you have enough background where you could, you know, add inputs and then be, you know, relevant in those kind of conversations.
Excellent. All right. So we'll have one more question on women leadership, and then we'll transition to a different topic. The many women experience a challenge finding a seat at the table, being noticed, being able to express their voice. What advice would you give corporate America on ensuring that female voices are not being silenced or marginalized?
You know, I think a lot of us in this room have experienced this, and we need to help advocate for each other. You will be in situations where you hear a woman make a suggestion and silence, right? Nobody picks up on it. But the opportunity for us to say, Lydia, that was a fantastic comment. Can I expand on that? Bringing voice to her, what she's already raised, we can do that. Men can do that too for women. The more that we do that, the more that we can overcome this silencing effect that sometimes happens.
It really starts with culture of the firm, and how it trickles down, as Julio was speaking about, and essentially creating allies within those rooms. I was mentioning to Raquel, you know, before a couple hours earlier, I remember a time early in my career when I saw a person who would have little small meeting, like a big meeting would be coming up, and then all of a sudden I see this person have small little group meetings around the office. I worked in an open office environment, and I said, wow, I wonder what they're doing. Well, they're getting buy-in, they're pre-selling ideas, they're generating collaboration to be able to have a really great discussion. And I think that was something that was, no one told me, hey, Lydia, you know, might be a good idea for you to go and have smaller conversations before the big conversation. It wasn't something that I learned until like 10 years later, maybe something I wish I would have learned earlier. So I think really it has to deal with culture, being observant of what others are doing. What am I missing out on? And I would say too that I think what corporations can do too is to really have a sense of creating trust between the employee and the firm and the corporation, and having those listening ears.
And Lydia and I were talking earlier, and we agreed that just because we may be granted a seat at the table doesn't mean that the responsibility ends there. I think that's where the responsibility begins, right? And I always think of, if I am the only Latina in the room or the only female around the table, I have this tremendous responsibility to represent the rest of the female Latinas who aren't in the room. And I better have something of value to say, right? Because just being in the room is not the point. It's just what value do I bring to the conversation? And how am I helping change either the perception or the reality or whatever it happens to be for other women? So it's the going in with a sense of responsibility to represent others who are not there, and realize that just because I happen to be Latina or female and I'm in the room, no one really has to listen to me unless there's something of value, right, that I bring to this conversation and something that changes the perspective or influences the perspective.
And if I may piggyback on a couple of those comments, it's, if we're all in the boardroom together and we notice, someone talking over one another, take a stand for that person and, really engage and say, oh, well, Raquel was speaking, she had something to say. Like, formulate your allies, because you really do need everyone to say, hey, that's not okay. That's not the type of culture, the way that we want these meetings to progress with the procedures.
All right, so we'll stay with you, Lydia.
Okay.
What are some strategies you use to recruit and develop female or Latinx talent?
So in my business, very male-dominated, and I think what we really try to do is to create a great reputation out there where it's a good place for women to come work. And when I started working at Haverford Trust Company over 12 years ago, one of the requirements that I had is that I really wanted to see a good base of females at the company, and at that time the president was a female too. So it really started me engaging of, well, what's kind of like that checklist of the next place that I want to work, and what are the things that are like the must-haves, the non-negotiables, right? So I was working at a large private, publicly traded company, and then I went to a privately held company. What are the things, what's the culture, is it matching? And what I've seen over the last 12 years, that they continue to be very pro engagement with women. They're also, there's programs to be able to help women achieve speaking opportunities too. So for example, we do a speaker series for women, which has been used to engage our female client base in conversations about finance, but it's also allowing us to use the pool of female employees at the firm at every level of the organization to give them opportunities to be a moderator, to be a speaker, to be able to share information. So those are some really great things that I've seen at the firm. And then we're really trying to pull a lot of female leadership too from local colleges and universities, and then also trying to build relationships with organizations like the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce to be able to build those bridges of talent recruitment.
Excellent. Great. Isaura, this one's for you. Diversity, equity, belonging, all priorities for companies across the world. What are perspectives and practices from other countries or regions that you've applied to your management strategies or your management style?
Yeah, so I think a lot of companies have very strong DEI practices, but that's not enough. You have to look at what are some of the unique barriers or situations in different countries that you could help to overcome. Knowing what we know today from DEI, what more can we do? So for example, my company, Intel, has a large presence in Costa Rica. And what we noticed was very few senior Latinas were moving up into the executive ranks. So a few of us decided, let's form a board of, we call it the Latin America Region Network of Executive Women. And we set a couple goals. Let's try to see the first female VP in the region within the next 5 years. We also set a goal, let's try to see the first principal engineer, which is the technical rank, in the region in the next 3 years. So we formed a board, we started meeting, we met all the women in the region who were in the senior ranks, and we started advertising, this is our goal. We want to see progression. So, you observe things, but you have to take action. And we didn't go ask for permission to form our board. Some of us just said, we think this needs to be done. So that's what you can do, is look around. You'll be exposed to a lot of things happening globally based on the experience that you've learned in your corporation of what's happening in the US. How do you apply? How do you empower? How do you build that in other countries? It's one example.
Awesome. Now you see why I have so much respect for Isaura. She's so thoughtful, and nothing stops her, right? It doesn't matter what the challenge is. She finds a way. This is that engineering mind of hers. Let me figure out the solution. I love it. And now what she's talking about is broad, right? Across the world, taking those practices and doing even more. All right. What is the best professional or personal advice that you've ever received? That's for both of you.
There's so many. Do I have to pick one?
All right, two.
Reframing the word, asking the phrase asking for help, reframing it from weakness to being a positive thing. I've really struggled with that a lot.
That's a good one.
Early on, and I finally had a flip of the switch saying, you know what, asking for help is a good thing, is a positive thing. Doesn't mean that I'm less of a leader or I don't know what I'm doing. And to me, asking for help means engaging those into the success of the broader picture of what we're doing. Asking for help means also being able to delegate and help someone who doesn't have as much experience as I do get experience and move up the ranks. So it's really been helpful for me to reframe what asking for help means to me.
I love that reframing. That's awesome. If I could give some advice, so I work at Intel. Intel is probably famous for making CPUs. So I have a little acronym that I came up with over the years of, speaking to other aspiring executives. And it has to do with CPU. It's commit, persist, unite. Commit to be your best self every day. When you show up as prepared as you can be. Persist. Persist despite setbacks, because there will be many setbacks. And unite, because you can't do it alone. So CPU, think about that.
Very good.
That's great. That's a great one. CPU. I'll never forget that.
Yeah. That is very good.
All right. A fun one. A fun question for the two of you. So it'll be more than just so why, right? Which book are you currently reading and why?
Stranger in the Lifeboat by Mitch Albom. And why am I reading it? I think it has to do with knowing thyself. It has to do with hope and just really thinking about living life is about having all the participants inside of the lifeboat during the turbulent times, during the calm times, and just really, considering that it takes a village to do everything that we would like to achieve and accomplish. And if we put goals out there, then let's share those goals. Don't keep them to ourselves. We need everyone in our village to help us, whether it's with, childcare, whether it's with time, whether it's with giving yourself some grace and saying, I could have done better this, one time, but give yourself grace. And I think that it's a little bit more of a spiritual book for me at this stage, of just saying it takes a village, and give yourself some grace and patience with things.
Awesome. How about you, Isaura?
I love to listen to books while I walk. I usually try to walk during lunch hour just to get out, And I'm listening to a book called Broadband. And it's fascinating. It's the history of computer science and the impact that women had in the development of computer science. So back to the early days of just doing computations in mathematics, that was mostly done by women. And why? Because they paid them less, unfortunately. You probably remember the movie Hidden Figures. It kind of calls attention to the computers. Later on in the development of the ENAC, a lot of the compute systems, how the computer programming was actually done by women who wanted to formalize and share a lot of the code. The story of Grace Hopper is in there as well. So it's fascinating because you don't really hear a lot about that history of computer science through the eyes of and through the work of how women really progressed that field. So recommend it to people that want to know more. I'm a history buff, so I'm enjoying that one.
Oh, that's awesome. You'll do it while you walk.
Yeah.
What are you reading, Raquel?
I am reading Never Eat Lunch Alone. And the reason it sparked my interest is because I think we all have so much on our plate. There's so much to do, so much to accomplish every day. And it's so easy to just get absorbed in what you're doing. And really, life is about relationship building and spending time with others and either sharing some of what you've learned or learning from others. And this is forcing me to think about who can I have lunch with today? We both have to eat. Who can I sit with and talk and just continue to build relationships, continue to learn, continue to, again, impart some, hopefully, knowledge to others that I'm interacting with. But it's a great book by Keith Ferrazzi. Highly recommended, very easy read. And it's really changing the way that I think about allocating my time throughout the week. Not necessarily every day, but now I'm thinking every week is who am I having lunch with this week? And how simple can I make it for that person? So it's not a specifically a lunch appointment where you have to go and sit at a restaurant and allocate time in your calendar. If we're both eating and if we are having lunch at noon, let's just have lunch together. So noble idea.
Yeah.
Noble idea.
Very efficient use of time.
Yes, efficient use of time. All right. Well, this conversation's been incredibly insightful for me. And again, I've had the pleasure of knowing Isaura for a number of years. I'm a big fan of hers. She is one of the brightest women that I've met, and she's so calm, and she's always thoughtful about what she says, when she says it, how she approaches problems, or how she approaches an opportunity. We were on a board together and had a chance to work side by side on some challenging times with that organization. And I was the board chair at the time, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without her support and her guidance as a board member. So I'm forever grateful for that and for our friendship. And Lydia, I know we just met today, earlier in the day. We introduced each other. And I feel like I've known you for a really long time. It's been such a pleasure to get to know how you think, your insights. We're very different at a different time in our careers. And I feel like I now have met a friend in Philadelphia. And the next time I'm in Philly, I'm coming to see you.
Bienvenida a Filadelfia.
So thank you so much.
If I could just add, I mean, we're amongst a powerhouse here. Raquel, you have tremendous presence here in Silicon Valley, market president of Bank of America. You are always doing things for the Latino community here. We appreciate that. And you are, someone that I look up to as, who I want to be.
Oh, my goodness.
So definitely kudos to you.
Well, thank you. Oh, my goodness. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, if this is not an example of how we can support each other, right, and how we can be advocates for each other, hopefully we're demonstrating what you heard us talk about earlier. But again, it's been a pleasure. And we have now time for Q&A. We're ending right on time. Look at that. A few minutes to spare. So I think we're going to open it up to the room for questions for our panelists. All right, looks like we have the first question.
Aris Morales, JP Morgan Chase. Amazing
How are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
Very good.
Great. So I have been blessed with having 4 amazing children in my household. I have a daughter, 3 boys and 1 daughter. She's 6 years old. I also know the statistics support that between the ages of 8 and 14, they lose about 27% of their confidence, and that can last a lifetime. What advice would you give the fathers in the room or anybody else who has a daughter to try to help her to navigate through that, and so that that percentage is not a fact for my daughter's life. And that hopefully one day she's sitting right there.
Oh my
She
goodness.
will with a father like that.
Exactly. She will with a father like you. Yes.
Maybe.
Do you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, the statistics are very saddening, and I think it's about having her own something, meaning like what is she proud at, and really being able to differentiate herself, maybe even within the family, with even having 3 older brothers, of like what is she special at, what is she good at, and celebrating it. And finding role models for her to get excited about and view, so that she can envision that future, envision being up on a stage, envisioning inventing something, having patents. I really think that in order to be it, you have to see it. I think that holds very true, and I think it's wonderful, and just keep empowering her to know who she is, because especially in those teenage years, being female is very, very, very tough. So the more that she can say, I don't need my friends to define who I am who I am, then she's got more than 90% over all of us, being able to look herself in the mirror, like Julio said, and say, yo soy quien soy. Yeah.
Super. All right. I know we have some additional questions, so let's keep them flowing. Go ahead.
Yeah. So my name is Maíra Olila. I work at Liberty Mutual. I do global strategy for them. And I'll give a little bit of context. As you, a Latina, and as the friends that came by here, also with numbers in my head all the times. And I understand we are 1% of the corporate rooms. We are the group of professionals that make the least amount of money, 35%, I believe, over the white male. And I know we're having this conversation for a long time. We've seen quite a few of our other communities, the Black community, the LGBTQ community, make efforts that have been pretty visual in the last years. How do you feel today we are as a group of Latinas being represented in this fight for equality? Is it a matter of time, and we're just already doing the right thing? We just sit and wait, and maybe not for me, but hopefully for his daughters? Or do we need to do way more, much, like in a completely different way, because it's, with everything that we've done so far, we're still at 1%. We're still at 35% of the salaries.
Well, that is a great question. I'll take a stab at it, and my friends here can add. I'm optimistic. I think the narrative is changing, and I think women are, through their efforts, not just simply demanding, right, equal pay, but really demonstrating why we deserve equal pay. Things are changing, right? And more companies are really focused on the concept of equity. And that's what this is about, right? It's treating everyone the same, regardless of their skin color or their gender or their beliefs, you name it. So I am very optimistic. I think your question is, will we see it in our lifetime, or will it be for the next generation? It's not going to be solved overnight, but I think we are further ahead than we've ever been. And again, I'm just an optimist, and I think it'll continue to change. And maybe it is for Julio's daughter, who's going to actually be able to see it happen, but it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. Agree?
I think we can change the trajectory, though.
Yes.
You know, based on the current trajectory, it's going to probably be another 30, 40 years before we see that equity. So can we speed it up? Yes, we can. And as a Latino community, I think we need to really use our voices to help each other. When we see something that is not equitable, that we speak up and support each other. I see that in the Black community. You know, they are advocates for each other.
Right.
We can do more of that. I know we already do, but we can do more.
All right. I think we've got a few more questions, so let's keep them coming. All right, go ahead. I think you were first.
Thank you. Nick Orozco from Kaiser Permanente. I work in the employer benefits market, so insurance brokers, and my office and a lot of our offices are predominantly females, which we love. But being the only male in our office.
You've got the opposite problem.
It's not a problem, it's wonderful. But as I transition, and I'll say this nicely to myself, as I transition from being the youngest guy years ago to now being the oldest one, I'm concerned. I find myself concerned with wanting to make sure that I'm going the extra mile so that they feel in an industry where some of our external counterparts can diminish them and cut them off, that I support them. And sometimes I come into the conversation saying, like, kind of almost apologizing, because I don't want you to feel this way, so please, this and that, like doing these kinds of things. And they go, you never make us feel that way and whatnot. And I want to transition my thought process from instead of saying, I don't want to do this, to as a man, what are messages that I could reaffirm and just proactively say and encourage, like how to adjust my messaging so that I'm encouraging and affirming instead of just going, I don't want to be this way, so please, does that make sense? I know it's a little.
No, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah,
there's a lot to unpack there, but what's coming to my mind is it's training. I would say we all need training on communication and how to interact with one another. And if there's a difficult conversation, asking clarifying questions, or can you help me understand what you meant by that? I would be lying to you if I would tell you that I never get cut off and no one has an idea or takes an idea that I'd said 10 minutes. It still happens, and I think it's really about, I love it that you're thinking about your company, and they're going to love you for it too, by helping them. Maybe it's giving them training on how to handle difficult conversations when they have someone who cuts them off. Like how do you talk through that? How do you stand up for yourself and give yourself the permission to not be the one sitting down saying, oh, they didn't mean to interrupt me or this or that, but like how do you empower them with the words, the conversation?
Absolutely, great advice. And we have time for one last question, so I'm going to go to my right here. Go ahead, please.
Juan David Munoz. I work for Chevron, highly technical field. I resonate with what you're saying. My question is basically, it's really a male-dominated group, bunch of engineers. I know it's changing, but what do you think we should do to support that change? Because there is lots of blind spots for us Latinos as males, right? And how we can support our Latinas, females, to kind of really integrate into our culture. It's a double whammy, it's woman and Latin, right? So what do you think we should do? And I say this out of being honest with you, I think I embrace my Latinas and all that, but what do you think we should do? And the other question is, in a highly technical environment that we are in, how we transition from being so technical, you work at Intel and all that, and transition to really manage a group of people and so on. So how was that transition? Hope that I didn't ask too much.
Yeah, no, that's good. The two different questions there. Yes. The first one, there's so much that we can do to help Latinas get into the technical fields. But the first is with regard to hiring. So when opportunities come up, are you bringing forward people that you may meet? Organizations like SHIP, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, are you affiliated with that group where you get exposure to Latinas who are interested in the field you're in? So when an opportunity comes up, you could name like 3 or 4 Latinas that should be interviewed for those jobs. First is just getting your foot in the door, so creating those kind of opportunities for hiring. The second is the transition, you said, in terms of from the technical to the managerial. And by the way, it's not for everybody. For some people, if you really are passionate about the technical, I encourage you to stay very technical all the way through, because some companies do have positions where you could be what they call a fellow, a senior technical leader. The pay is equivalent to a vice president. So stay technical if you're passionate about it. But if your passion is people, then how do you organize the work, the technical work, in a way that includes everybody to get the job done? If that's a strength, if you like working with people to understand how to motivate different individuals, how to work with the capabilities they have, then start small, maybe managing a few people, and then growing as you build that confidence. Express your interests to your management if that's what your goal is. But again, if you like being technical, stay technical.
All right, ladies, thank you again so much. It's been a real pleasure to spend time with the two of you. I hope everyone has enjoyed the insights that Lydia and Isaura have shared. Can I ask everyone for a round of applause for our two panelists, please?
Thank you.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. Photo. Wow.